Hey, welcome. My name is Jeff Harrison, along with.
Leslie Spohr.
Hey, Leslie, welcome. You are at the Bent, Twisted, and Exhausted Entrepreneur podcast. We are excited to be here again. We've been doing a series, Leslie, of those challenges that sometimes a business owner will find in their first 12 months. So if you're in that mode, it's kind of nice to go through this. Today is the fifth in the series of 5, and we call it the Managing Growth and Scaling Too Fast. Leslie, you've probably never seen anybody grow too fast and implode, have you?
Oh, many times, many times, unfortunately. People don't look at their business from an aggregate perspective. They just sort of try to work by the seat of their pants, and that rarely works very well.
Yeah, I'm going to put this up here. It says some businesses fail because they try to scale too quickly without the right foundation, leading to poor customer service, overwhelmed employees, and cash shortages. Now, these are all things that we've talked about in depth in 1 through 4. We talked about those because those are every one of those, not having the right foundations. That's processes and whatnot. So all of these things we've covered. So if you missed any of this, go back and listen to it. It is a master class. But Leslie, let's talk about, hey, what are the solutions to this challenge?
Well, one of them is to make sure that you have demand in order to grow. In other words, you may want to expand really fast and get like a big office and get fancy furniture and all this kind of stuff that is not necessary to servicing your clients or running your business. And if you don't need it, I recommend you don't get it, because there's no sense in spending the money. Money is lost opportunity cost, right? You've tied up funds into items that aren't giving you any return. So you want to very carefully review. For example, I worked out of my home office for 17 years. And it's only been the last 3 years that we've had an actual physical office. And in the beginning, I felt guilty about that. Like I wasn't a real business because I didn't have a brick and mortar space. Well, my house is brick and mortar, but the office wasn't, it didn't have a legitimate office. And in fact, after when COVID came around, it became clearly obvious that it was prudent not to have spent all that money on that space and to save all that. Plus, you can pay yourself for the office space in the house. So you don't really need to have it if you can get by with it. Now, if you're doing something where you need to deal with the public in a way where you have products and widgets and things that you're selling, obviously you're going to need some kind of a space, but you don't have to get a ginormous one. You could get by with 1,000 square feet and get started with that. And then as demand warrants and you need to add more product and more help, then you could get a bigger space. I've seen places up there on El Paseo where they have one little unit, right? And then as they grow, they expand into 2 units and then eventually into 3 units, so that they're not spending all that lease money up front. They're saving it until you have to spend it. And it was the same with us getting an office. We didn't need to get one until we got so big that we had to have it. So that's why we saved all that money for all those years. There's just no need to invest in space or I can't think of what I'm trying to say, like assets. There's no reason to invest in assets for your business until you need them.
I'm gonna kind of throw a little bit of a curve in there, because I think another option might be this: is ask yourself, are you servicing customers at their place of business or their home, or are they actually coming to you? In other words, do you need a storefront? If you don't need that, there is a cool solution. And if you've heard of a company called WeWork, there are basically here in the Coachella Valley, there are several places where you can say, hey, I can rent an office space, and it's really not an office space. You might get 6 or 8 hours a month for like $200. And so that way, if let's say, for instance, I had to meet Leslie, she's a potential new customer, I could actually have her come to that location and I could have an office for $10 an hour or $15 an hour. And if there were many people, I could then rent out the conference room and maybe for $25 an hour and have the appearance and the convenience of an office without all that extra overhead. And maybe I only have a couple hundred bucks a month in there. And the nice thing about that is it gives me a physical address to say, yes, this is my business address. And in some cases, it'll also let you have someone answer your phone. So those are some options. That was something for me, Leslie, that I looked at and said, I had an office for several years and I thought it would be nice because I had a couple little vignettes in there where people would come in, I would film them. But then I realized that was really cool. But 99% of the time, I was actually going to the place of business
Right.
and filming them in their location. And one day I met my landlord and I said, I haven't been here in 6 months. I think I'm going to end my location. It was a vanity thing for me to say, yes, I have an office. It doesn't matter. So think about that. Hey, am I actually servicing people in my place of business? Because there's a lot of different options than having a big office space that you could still feel like you have an office. And then when you do
Right.
have customers come in. So that's just another option.
Right. I agree 100%. For us, when we got our office space, it isn't so much that we have clients who come there as it is that we need a place for deliveries because clients send us stuff all the time, for mail, for supplies, where the employees can go work if they have a day where they want to just do paperwork, but it's all digital paperwork stuff. There's a couple extra desks in there. It's a very small location. I mean, 3 people barely fit in there, but there's a conference room right behind our area. So when we need to all get together, we can use the conference room. So we don't have to have a great big airy space. Most of the time, there's just one person in there, the office manager. So it's perfect for what we need. And I think that you need to look at that. My office at home was also perfect, which is where I'm at right now. This is my home office. And it was perfect for many, many, many years. But eventually we just we had too many, we got more employees, we had more people in and out, it started to disrupt my family life. So, eventually you get to the point where you've grown enough that you need to do something about it. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what it says. Grow methodically. Only scale when demand justifies it. As Leslie said, she did her business out of her home for 17 years. And she could have easily, at any of these points, done it someplace else, but it didn't justify it. And she had the systems in place to handle it. Like I know that you would accept packages, you would have meetings now and then with your staff, and that would work around the kitchen table. But then it was like, hey, you got too many people. It justified it. So before you grow, do it methodically and make sure you're ready for it. The next one is hire smart. Bring people in who align with your mission and can grow with the company. Let's talk about that, Leslie, because I have personally been in a situation where I have brought in, other people, and it just hasn't worked out. What do we want to look out for there?
Oh my gosh, we went through a terrible period of time where we had so much turnover. And we had to figure out what was causing that. Part of it was we were hiring the wrong people. Part of that was we had some incorrect people or less talented people in leadership roles than we should have had. But one of the things I would like to talk about this before I talk about hiring smart is that, although it all ties together, when I started my company, I didn't start it to do the work myself. Most people do. Most people start a business, they hang a shingle, they're out there doing the work every day, which makes growth even more complicated. And we can talk about that in a second when you're the only person doing the work. But for me, the minute I got a client, I hired somebody. Now, that's insane and backwards from what most people do, but I was trying to create a company and I wanted that hierarchy because we sell a service, we sell time. And so the kiss of death when you sell time is for somebody to say to you, you're like family to me. right? Because then they want favors. They don't want you to charge them for time. Whereas if I put somebody between me and them, that was actually the employee, then the client was aware that that person had to be paid. And they were more conscious of what they asked for and how they went about doing things. So there is a method to my madness. Having somebody hired immediately change the structure of our company and accomplish what I was trying to accomplish, which was A, to create a business that looked like it was bigger than it was, and B, to create that hierarchy so that people wouldn't quibble about how much things cost. It really worked out well. Same as if you're in retail or a restaurant service or something, it's nearly impossible to do it all yourself. But when you go to hire somebody, what do you look for, right? What is hiring smart, right? So for me, I happen to know after years of trial and error that hiring people from academia is a good background for me to have for people. Hiring people who have a banking or financial background is also good because we have lots of policies and procedures, which is one of the things you need for growth. And you need people that are willing to follow them. You need people that are rules followers. I do. If you're running an art studio, maybe you need people that are more creative and can better help people. Or if you're doing a yoga studio or something like that, you need people that are creative and physical and have different skills. Whereas for what we need people that are customer service focused and rule followers and able to multitask. You, for example, as I know you do, you need technical expertise, people that understand technical skill or have a technical skill set and stay up with current technology, because that's really important for what you do, correct? I would think you would agree with that.
Yes.
So thank you. That fed a lot into this conversation. Yes, thank you, Jeff.
I didn't know what to say. You kind of filled it all in. I like, okay. I thought you were just going for a nod.
No, I wanted you to say something.
Well, you know what? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of times, depends on the kind of business you have, but there's a couple things like your first hire. Who could that be? It says someone who aligns with your mission, but also someone who's doing something that, like Leslie has said, hey, they got between you and your customer to give you that feeling of separation, that there is a value here higher than, oh, you're just the same guy that I called to wash my windows. You are the guy washing the windows. No. You're the business owner. Right. Another thing, and this is probably true in my world, that, we hire virtual assistants first because we can offload a tremendous amount of the things that we do on a daily basis that are, I'm going to call, let's say non-technical type of things, and they can do a great job. So that would be one other hire. The other one would be to say, hey, what are the things that I need to do that I really don't like doing? And that's a hire person. Hire somebody hire somebody who does things that you don't like to do, but they need to get done. Like I have someone that actually puts the posts for our clients on their websites. It's not that I can't do it. That's not something I enjoy to do. And there's a phrase I learned a long time ago. It's not the highest and best use of my time. I could use my time from a visionary standpoint and looking at metrics and things of that nature and guiding my company. So think about that when you're hiring somebody. And I think another thing sometimes, and I made this mistake, so I hired someone that I thought was in line with what I was doing, but he really was somebody who wanted to be on his own. He really is his own business owner. And so that wasn't a good alignment. And there's a saying that says, I would rather be number 2 or number 5 or 6 at Facebook than number 1 at my own company. Because, sometimes there are people that are better off that they're being number 2 or number 3 at a company because they're in their sweet spot. They love to come to work. They really feel valued. So take a look at that and find out, is that who you need to find? and then go look for that kind of person. And of course, when you're interviewing them, you're going to ask those kind of questions to find out, are you thinking about starting your own company and I'm just a stepping stone? Because you're always going to be you're looking for them to leave, and you don't want that to happen.
Well, and the other thing too, and a lot of people make this mistake, is that you should hire people who want your job or who are at least as good as you, right? I know quite a few people who, over consulting with people, that think they don't want to hire somebody as good as them because they're insecure and they're afraid they'll try to push them out of the way or take over the business or steal their clients or whatever. And there are things you can put in place to avoid the stealing of clients pieces. But as far as hiring people smart, you want to hire people who know at least as much, if not more than you, because everybody who comes into your business or into your sphere of influence brings with them new ideas, new skills, new abilities that can only serve to help you. If you hire somebody who's lesser, who does not have any experience in what you're doing, or little experience, in fact, if they have little compatible experience, that's why I said administrative, or what did I say for education? Whatever it was, it started with an A, I forget. If you hire people with an education background, teachers, daycare, whatever, they have a tendency to understand about structure. So for me, that's a positive. You have to find what you need for your business, and they should always be smarter than you because you want them to want your job. They will push you to be better at what you do. And so now there are A, B, and C players. There always have been. And A players can be a pain in the rear because they are like fighting you on every single thing. That's good if you can control it and you can grow from it. But everybody needs some amount of C players. Those people who come in, they do their job, they're solid, they're dependable. You can rely on them. You need those people too. So I don't want to say that you should always hire A's. Sometimes you need a C player. In fact, always you need some C players in your business.
Yeah, I think it's almost like having somebody that says they're the organizer in your company, because when you get all the socks laid out on the bed, they'll align them and put them in the right place. And you need some people like that, because there are days when I'm working, my wife will come in my home office and said, "What hit your office?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Because I've got projects going on everywhere. And so sometimes it's nice. And like yesterday, I took the day and I'm like, okay, I do need to get my office more organized. And now it's like, oh, it's a fun place to come into again. The other thing is, I learned this statement 2 years ago. I joined a mastermind, and the statement was, stop asking how and start asking who. And
Right.
so I started doing that. I'm saying, and what that does is saying, oh, I don't have to learn how to do this. And this is a tough one, because if you think I have to find the time to learn how to do that and keep my company running, that's a challenge. And sometimes, me included, I'll resist wanting to go down that road. I say, well, I'll just wait, when I really need to jump on that opportunity right now. So now what I do is said, if this is what I want to do, I'll give you a perfect example. We're designing artificial agents, voice agents. And yes, I've gone through some of the training over the last, 18, 24 months. But I said, I'm better off, now that I understand the process, I'm better off hiring somebody who knows exactly how to do that, and then tell them what my vision is and let them do that, because they're like that big magnifying glass. They have focused the beam of sunlight, and they're putting things on fire. For me, it would just be a blurry mess and I'd never start the fire. So who, not how, is sometimes a good question when you're thinking, I want to grow, I want to scale. Who do I want to hire to do that? Not how, right? And that might actually help you spot that purple cow, if you will, that stands out and says, "Hey, I need my C player now."
Right. Yeah, it's challenging. Learning how to hire well is definitely a big challenge. I see the best of everybody. In fact, to the point where sometimes the best isn't really there, but I see it anyway. I think they call that codependence. I'm not quite sure, but I always see potential and positivity out of everybody I meet. And sometimes they're not always that way. And I'll tell you, one of the things that you have to honor in this hiring process that's critical is that you trust your instincts. I was terrible about trusting my instincts because I will give people the benefit of the doubt and keep trying to help them and say, oh, I know they can do this. And so I'm going to keep doing training and education and trying to help them be successful. And some people just can't. Some people are not a good fit for your organization. You have to cut the ties. And it's tough to do. It's really tough for me. I keep people way longer than I should. And I'm trying to learn how to do that still to this day. But you will learn over time who works the best for your type of business. You know, if you can get by with teenagers learning their first job and learning how to be part of a team and wanting to make some money and learn their value in the world, great for you. I have to have older, more mature people who understand how homes work and how they and can be trusted alone in people's property and work with little supervision. So you have different facets of what you need out of your employees. And one of the biggest things is trusting your instincts because, like I said, I've been horrible at that. I finally started delegating that to somebody else because I can't trust myself to not think, oh, this is a good person when they're really not. You know what I mean?
I'll give you an example. In my world, we use video editors, and we from around the world. So just recently, my number two, Melissa, said, "Hey, this particular person is just not working out anymore," and so I've really delegated to her to determine, because she's in the bunker with them. She's going hand to hand. So she knows when it's time, like, hey, these people aren't working. She'll let me know. I'll go out and hire somebody. This is what I do. When it comes to video, what I'll do is I will usually hire between 3 and 5 people to do one project. And I'll send that out, and then we'll review how well that project was done based on our directions that we give them. And we have a very specific process of how we do things. And then we'll get together and say, which ones did we like? Were they easy to work with? And then we'll hire somebody, keeping those other people, if they were still, hey, they were really good, you know, they were B's and C's, if you will. We kept them at like a good relationship with them, but we hired the A's, and then she'll manage those people. So I don't trust myself anymore because I'm the same way. I'm like, let's just make this work out. No, it doesn't work, because in our world, it's like, and yours too, and probably everyone listening, it all has a time frame. And if it starts going over that time frame, it costs us. It may not cost us money initially, but it may cost us trust between our customers and our business when we have to say, oh, that didn't get delivered today. It'll be here tomorrow. No, if we said it today, I want it to be early in the day and get that done. So those are just some thoughts. We could build on this, but hiring smart. Any last thoughts on that before we go to the next one?
I had one, but it's gone now. So go ahead.
Okay. So the next one is, I love this one because I'm going to bring up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Leslie. So measuring key metrics, track profitability, customer acquisition costs, and retention rates before expanding. I have seen this, and I know you're going to nod your head. You're going to give yourself a, yeah, I know what you're talking about. When you have a restaurant that you love to go to, and you've been going there for 8 or 10 years, and then and it's a small little restaurant. Every time you go, it's busy. They know you. It's fun. Then they go into a place twice the size, 6 months, maximum a year, they're out of business because they didn't do these track profitability, customer acquisition costs, and retention rates. They just thought, hey, we're busy. Let's double our size. Leslie, what are you thinking?
Well, it's even more than that. I agree with you 100%. If you want to talk restaurants, I've seen it happen several times here in the desert where somebody's got a small place and they open up a big place and it fails right away. And part of that is because you have to build a strong team to begin with. You have to find the right people with the right, just like everything we were just talking about, you have to find the right people to work there. And then when you have a bigger place, you can serve more customers, which means you need to cook faster, which means you probably have to bring in additional chefs or sous chefs or whatever. And sometimes their quality is not as good as the one single guy that was working in the small restaurant. I saw that happen with a restaurant that's no longer here. They took all the bad people from all their other places and put them in this one new place. And I was like, why would you do that? It didn't make them any better to do it. It just made everything worse. So, all those kind of businesses, there's lots of things to think about when you expand and when you're growing your business. Most companies fail in the first 2 years. I think half of them fail in the first year, and another 50% of that 50% fail in the second year. And I think a lot of that is there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is not properly reviewing their key metrics or their key performance indicators to make sure their businesses stay on track, right? So there are industry best practices for every kind of business out there: service, retail, manufacturing. I mean, it doesn't matter, automotive, whatever it is, there are key business metrics or performance indicators for every kind of business. And in fact, many of them are the same across all of them, because there are a set of industry benchmarks in general just for being in business, right? But you have to make sure that, for example, in the example of the restaurant, if you go from serving 50 guests at a time to 100 guests at a time, now you've increased your food buy, for one thing, right? So how does that affect your profitability? Are you getting the same level of profit at 100 that you were getting at 50? And if not, why not? You can't just assume because you double your purchase and you double your customer base that you've doubled your profit, because it just unfortunately just doesn't work that way. Somebody told me the other day, I forget what, I think they were a builder, who said that they made way more money when they were under 15 employees than they did once they got to 30. That the smaller they were, the more profit they made, because the faster they were able to move, the better their customer service, the more control they had over how all the operations worked, right? Because once you start getting big, you cannot possibly manage everything. So you got to check your profitability, like you said. And then how much does it cost to get a customer? For me, hiring somebody I know costs me about $2,000. I can't hire somebody and train them for less than $2,000. So if they don't work out, it's a huge hit, right? Same goes for customers. How much advertising do you have to put out there to bring in a new customer? How many menu items? I'm sticking with the restaurant analogy. If you want to add more customers, do you want to appeal to a broader base? So you add more different things. Look at Sherman's Deli. Have you seen the size of their menu? I mean, my goodness, they have so many different options. I don't even know how they stock their kitchen. Honestly, I think about that every time I'm there. It's like, how do you do this and turn out such good food so fast with all these different options? I don't know who's in the back, but it must be amazing. And actually, that's probably why they ended up on diners and drive-ins with what's his name?
Fieri.
Oh, yeah, Guy Fieri, because their food is good and they have this enormous menu. But if you've ever gone into a coffee shop which has 10 pages of options, and you say, oh, I could have breakfast now, I could have dinner now, I could have this or that, it's like, how much are you paying to stock all that stuff? And again, food in particular has a shelf life, right? So you can't use frozen for everything. You have to have fresh. And so how do you calculate how much of that do you need? And say you want to expand your client base and you want to offer Mexican food and Indian food at the same time, completely different ingredients. How much is that going to cost for you, right? Simply because you're trying to cater to a larger customer audience, right? So you have to figure out how much does it cost to bring in customers, right? And then how much does it cost to keep them? What does it take to keep them? I can't think of how to keep them. I'll tell you, There's an ice cream place in La Quinta. You probably know which one I'm talking about since you live up there, where they make
Handles.
the ice. No, 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 no. Where they make the ice cream on the spot for you. It's right in Old Town. Um, honest to goodness,
Nitro
that
Fusion.
yeah, that ice cream is the best ice cream, and it doesn't cause sugar fluctuation for me at least because they make it right there and doesn't have a lot of additives or anything in it. So um, I would go back again and again. The retention rates for that are very small, and they have a tiny little place. You can barely get 3 people in there. It's just tiny. It's a line out the down the block, right? But they kept their overhead costs down. They kept the number of options down, and they do a really good quality product. So they can track their profitability easily, right? The cost to keep customers is the quality of what they give, and I don't know, and they don't even have to advertise that much, so their acquisition costs are low, and then the retention rate is, I can't even imagine that's that much either. So there are, sometimes it's just looking at who are you trying to attract. I guess that's always the case, right?
Mhm.
I'm kind of rambling a little bit. It's always the case. You have to know who your target client is, what's going to bring them to you, and how do you keep them once you have them. It's easier to keep a client, right, than it is to get a new one. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people think, well, I'll just keep bringing in new clients, but it's much easier and better for you to keep them. I have a client since I started for 20 years now. Same client, multiple wives, different families, same client, 20 years. There's not a lot of people that can say that. And so that's a testament to the quality. It's either a testament to the quality of the work or the fact that they just don't want to go look for somebody else. I don't know what. But actually, he's been really great with us. So I think you have to look at all of those things. What would you add to that?
Well, I don't think I'd add anything else to that. Just make sure that's part of your decision for growth is to measure your metrics, as Leslie has talked about. This last piece is, and I like it. I like this. Is stay agile. Be prepared to pivot if early assumptions about the market don't hold true.
Right.
That happens almost every day, Leslie, in the digital
Yeah.
world that I live in. We're in chat GPT 1 minute, then here comes DeepSeek. Then DeepSeek is really like, no, we can't really use that. So, just be ready to move. And I think the trick to this is to do it in such a way that your customers don't see you, because sometimes it can seem chaotic behind the scenes, but it's one of those things in the front of the scene. It looks like you still have things super under control, and let them know that, hey, their service or their product is still going to be delivered on time while you're figuring it out in the back room.
Right. Yeah. When we first started our business, and I know you can relate to this because I've seen you do this 1,000 times over. That when we first started, we had an idea of what we were going to do, just like everybody, right? You have an idea. These are the products or services you're going to offer. This is how you're going to do it. And then what happened for us is that clients kept coming and saying, well, can you do this? And can you do this? And can you do this? And because we were service-based, we were able to say, yes, we can do those things, because I believe in selling with an empty bench. And by that, I mean, somebody says, can you do this? I say yes, and I go figure out how to do it, or hire to support it, or whatever I need to do, set the new processes, add more products, whatever. It's even more challenging for you because technology is moving at lightning speed. And so, do you remember the days in the 90s? I guess it was in the 90s and early 2000s. When I was working on the road, I had to carry a DVD player and a disc drive and books and movies, and I would have books ordered and sent to my hotel from Amazon that was just barely getting started and was losing money every year, right? And now look at where they are. There's something that's about stick-to-itiveness. I love that about them. And so, and they stayed agile too, but I'll get down a different path if I start talking about that. So nowadays an iPad came out, and covered all of those things. I didn't have to carry, in fact, I didn't have that when I was on the road, but I wish that I would have, because I didn't have to carry anything but an iPad, right? And then beyond that, nowadays, the with Zoom and with what are we using, StreamYard, and with there's just so, chatbots and automation and AI and just so many things. It's changing faster than you can even blink your eyes, right? So for me, it's challenging, but it's not as challenging as what you're doing, I don't think, because I know that you're on the cutting edge of AI, especially out here where we are. And I would think that would hold true for quite a few marketing companies across the country. You really are on the cutting edge of this stuff, and you stay with it. No matter what happens in the market, you're constantly evolving, which I admire a lot, because it's hard to keep up. I mean, all you have to do is look at videos on X or on Instagram or on TikTok, and you keep getting, at least I get bombarded by AI options. There's just so many of them, so many apps now. And so people need to be able to avail themselves of this technology changes or client demands. Go ahead. I was going to say something about colors, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if a client walks in and says, I really wish you had this in burnt orange, popular in Palm Springs. Orange is a popular color in Palm Springs, or turquoise, but it's not something you normally carry. You have to look at your demographics and look at where you are and say, should I be carrying this? Because of all their mid-century modern, avocado is a good color for them. Harvest gold, I remember those colors in the 70s, right? These days, they're not so popular unless you're in Palm Springs, because mid-century modern is all the rage down there. So you have to look at your market. You have to look at what your clients are asking for, and you have to monitor technology so that you can be flexible and modify your business model to keep up with the times. And that's something I know you do regularly.
Yeah, I think one piece, and I'll end with this on my side, is, things are changing all the time. And so there was a point where I was absolutely, I'll be honest, overwhelmed because of the changes. And then I asked myself the question that said, okay, if I'm in the game for the next 10 years, what's not going to change? And that's when I understood
Good
that,
question.
yeah, that human behavior is not changed. So if you go back to the beginning of any kind of marketing, there's a human behavior we all have, and we want to feel good about our decision making. So for me, is I chose to say, am I on a human behavior platform that's not changing? And then does the technology I bring in, does it support that, or is it just a waste of my time? And that's helped a lot. It's almost like having a force field on the front of my Star Trek as I'm going through the universe, of saying, nope, just, force field, let that one go by. And that's made a big difference. Is at the end of the day, everything I try to do now with growth is it based on human behavior, not so much technology. Even though technology, I have to look at everything and decide, is it something I want to plug in or not?
That's a good point too. I think what isn't changing, it's hard. This is a difficult piece, because I think people get locked when they start a business. They get locked into their thought process, their business model, their service offerings, or their product offerings. They get way locked in, and you have to. Well, I'm a big proponent of staying in your own lane, right? You've heard me say that a million times. Stay in your lane.
At least a million.
At least a million, because I get distracted by shiny objects too, but you have to stay in your lane. Within your lane, though, there are varying degrees of opportunity to enhance what you're doing to stay up with the times. My original, and I don't know about you, and you can tell me how this works for you, but my original target market was upper end baby boomers, of which I am one. Now it's been 20 years, and so I'm just at my late 60s. So I'm not as old, but a lot of my baby boomers are in their 80s and their 90s. And so now I realized I have to change my target market, because a lot of the people I catered to previously aren't in the market for this, what we offer, right? They're looking for more in-home support. They're looking for daily care, more convalescent care, which we don't provide. So I had to look at a new market. And with that came its own challenge, right? Because when you go to younger money, and that's what I call a new market, right? They're not baby boomers anymore. I don't know,
Millennials.
No, is it millennials? Are they the ones that are half digital, half analog? Okay.
Yep.
So when you look at the millennial market, which is the one below that, then I really need a piece of paper up here that tells me which generation is what, because I can't remember. When you go to the millennials, a lot of them are more DIY, right? A 60-year-old today is not the same 60-year-old of 20 years ago, right? And I don't mean they were 40, I meant they were 60 20 years ago. They were older. Remember how when we were young and we would look at our grandparents and they would be in their 60s and we think, oh my God, they're so old.
Ancient.
But right. But nowadays, a 60-year-old looks younger, looks like somebody in their 40s. And it's not just plastic surgery, although who's against a little enhancement now and then? But it's just we're staying younger longer, better health care, better nutrients, better whatever. And interestingly, my daughter said to me, who is also a millennial, she's 46, almost next week. She was telling me that her generation now is very focused on health, blood evaluations. What does their blood work say? What kind of food are they eating? How can they nourish their bodies better? They're very, very focused on health. That's an interesting piece of information to know. If you're in the healthcare industry, you need to know that so that you can leverage it for marketing purposes, right? For me, I've got more DIYers than I used to have, because you're younger acting, younger thinking at the same age where you used to be old, right? So for you, technology is voodoo for everybody. So you can have a little bit of knowledge and look like a genius. You have a lot of knowledge and look like a genius, but some people can just get by with a little bit, and somebody who doesn't know any better is going to say, oh, that's good. But having somebody like you around who can say, there are different options for you today in your marketing strategies. It's not just Facebook. It's not just social media. There's other things you can do, is a huge benefit. What did you tell me? What did you talk about the other day at the BNI meeting that I thought was so brilliant? You were talking about doing videos on, FAQs. You were talking about doing videos on FAQs, right? That's a whole different thought process for me. I love that.
Yeah, because people are going to be asking those questions. So why not give them the answer and do it in a video where they're 4 times more likely to choose a video over something written?
Brilliant. I have FAQs on my website. I did a couple of booklets answering FAQs. Written booklets are downloadable. I mean, they're digital, but they're still booklets. And now it's like, why do videos? So much better. It's that innovation and ability. I keep seeing the word agile on the screen, so I want to keep using the word agile, but it's that ability to be flexible and think outside the box that really can help you grow your business without a huge investment, it's growing it smart. I think, you can't just grow it to be growing it. Like we said, just kind of recap, your demand has to be there in order to grow it, right? Do you already have summary stuff? So you want to grow methodically. So you want to put some thought process into it. You want to make sure you have the policies and procedures in place to control it so your quality stays there, but you only want to do it when it's time. And then you want to hire really smart people that want your job, or are A players that are as good as you, so that you can delegate to them and you can trust them to take on. And then you also have to make sure that you're monitoring and measuring the health of your business and different, whatever the costs or the cycle, the process cycles are for your particular business. You need to monitor those so that you can constantly try to improve them, so that you can keep clients and bring in new ones. And then finally, like we talked about, staying flexible and able to take on or explore new avenues of opportunity for your company. How about you? Who's your target client these days?
Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. But my target client, I keep thinking local business owners, to help them attract their ideal customers, because at the end of the day, if they don't have customers, they don't have a business. They have a disaster. So, I keep looking at that. And one of the things that we tend to do at Swing Point Media is we tend to look at every one of our processes and saying, are we actually getting all the juice out of each one of those processes, or are they really not necessary anymore? Like we're looking really hard at things like SEO now.
Oh my gosh.
We've never done that before in the manner that we're doing it. And so I've hired a couple of experts that are in SEO, and we're seeing what that does to help our customers stand out more local searching. Like one client I think we built over 50 local pages for them on their website to help them, expand their market, because Google Business Profile has changed. And so, I'm still looking at those type of businesses, but I find myself, Leslie, getting more and more into wanting to help educate businesses who may think, wow, is AI for me? Should I be using AI so that I could help them sift through that? I love education and teaching. And so, it might be more of a consulting role for those same type of businesses.
Well, and that's the same as me, Concierge Business Solutions, which is I have the two companies, as you know. And so for examples, I use Executive Errands because it is my service-based business where we have, it's local. But Concierge Business Solutions is my international or national, at least, consulting and software company, where we are constantly trying to help people with these kinds. That's why we started this podcast, right? Was so that we could help people avoid the mistakes that we made. I mean, everybody, when you start out, this twisted bit and exhausted is like no joke, right? You do get wrapped up in your shorts. You do get exhausted. You definitely get bent from time to time. And so, what we're trying to do, and we've talked about this many times, is that we're trying to really help people be successful in their business, so they don't have to experience the ups and downs and problems that we have. God knows there's enough problems without facing the same ones that we had to go through when we were building our businesses, right? Yep. And you and I are the same in that we both like education and training. That is my most favorite thing to do. When you see somebody's eyes light up because they got a concept, you're able to explain it in a way that they understand it. There's no greater satisfaction for me than to see that light in their eyes, like, oh, yeah, okay. Or like how I felt about FAQ the other day. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. I could totally do that. So yeah, I love it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and that's what we intend to provide through these podcasts.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today at the Bent, Twisted, and Exhausted Entrepreneurial Podcast. This is the fifth in a series of 5 under in the first 12 months of ownership. These are the most challenging business situations that you may face. And so if you know someone, or you're someone yourself who is in that 12-month process, and let me then share this. Go back and watch these if you're jumping into this particular episode. But here's something that I want you to be aware of. If you're thinking about growing, these are really foundational pieces that will help you and really go back and do that. So again, this is the Bent, Twisted, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. My name is Jeff Harrison. I want to thank you for joining us today, along with my wonderful co-host who has a bright and shiny smile, and that is
Leslie Spore with Concierge Business Solutions, and we are here to make your life better.
And we'll see you next week. We'll be back on track, and we'll be talking about all things entrepreneurial that sometimes get your, I was going to say panties in a twist, but I'm not sure if we can say, yeah, hey,
It's
we
part
can
twisted.
say that. That's poor. That's true. That's twisted. So if it's bent, twisted, or exhausted, we'll help you get it back on track. Thanks for joining us.
Untwisted.
Yes. All right. Thank you, folks.